police reform. It looks like this sort of soft Memorial Day deadline is going to slip without legislation being passed. Is the White House losing some confidence in the bipartisan talks that are going on Capitol Hill? And also, how does President Biden plan to address that issue on Tuesday when he speaks about the anniversary of George Floyd's death?
Well, I would say first that the president used the occasion of his joint address, one of the highest profile moments any president has, to speak about, reiterate his view that police reform is long overdue, that the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act is exactly the right forum and bill that could help get that done, rebuild trust in communities. What we've seen from the negotiators, and we've been in close touch with the negotiators as well, is that they still feel there is progress being made. Yes, it's unlikely, as they've conveyed as well, we're going to meet the timeline that the president outlined in his speech, which he did because he felt that it was important to lift it up, to be bold and ambitious in how we're talking about such an important piece of legislation. But we have confidence in the negotiators, and we've seen them convey publicly that they feel the vibes are good and they're continuing to make progress. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. Is the president confident that this ceasefire will hold? And if so, can you explain a bit why? Did he receive any kinds of assurances from Prime Minister Netanyahu?
Well, we have strong assurances. Sorry, I don't know why that was a hard word. Let me try again. We have strong assurances from the relevant parties that they are committed to the ceasefire. And obviously this is something we will be watching extremely closely in the coming days. And I think what's important to note is in the final 24 hours leading up to the ceasefire, obviously the president was deeply engaged before that, but he was especially deeply engaged in that period of time, as were high-level senior officials here. And they were back and forth on the phone between many different parties, the Israelis, the Egyptians who were in touch with Hamas, and others, about the importance of not violating, even pre-violating the ceasefire in the hours leading up to it, as we see did not happen. So we will be in close touch with all parties. We clearly will be watching it, but we do have assurances from the relevant parties that they are committed.
And yesterday, before this was announced, you said you expected Israel to start winding down their operations because they had achieved significant military objectives. So how much of the timing of this do you think is because of the president's diplomatic approach? And how much of this is simply because the Israelis had exhausted much of their targets in Gaza?
Well, I think what's, again, important to remember is to point back to how these conflicts have worked in the past. And we have seen these conflicts last for weeks and weeks, many, many more lives lost. Now, we certainly know there were lives lost in this 11-day conflict. Everyone is a tragedy. But certainly, because of the president's deep engagement, his long relationships, the fact that he set a clear objective from the beginning that we were going to put out the noise and focus on our strategy of deep, intensive, quiet diplomacy, have conversations, not call out our partners and allies, and do our engagements through one-on-one conversations. We certainly think that had an impact. Now, of course, we also were watching closely and we're in touch with them closely about their military successes, and certainly that was a factor, but a part of the discussion as well.